I am Jim Collison, and this is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on November 2nd, 2021. Called to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you're listening live, love to have you join us in our chat room. There's a link on our live page right above me there. That'll take you to the YouTube instance. There's a chat room. Sign in. You can ask us your questions live. If you're listening after the fact, you can always send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget, and many of you do that, by the way. Appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can just search Called to Coach or subscribe there on YouTube with the button below. Dani Grieveson is my guest today. Dani has enjoyed a career with companies like Top Gear, Coca-Cola, the Olympic Games, Lord March at Goodwood Estate, Mercedes-Benz, Rolls-Royce, just to name a few organizations she's worked with. She's experienced her experience of leadership, diversity, and successful organizations continues to provide knowledge and understanding to powerfully raise those performance of teams and individuals. We'll talk a little bit about that today. Her top 5 are CliftonStrengths top 5: developer, connectedness, positivity. You'll see a lot of that today. Empathy and input. Dani, thanks for joining me on Called to Coach.
Jim, it's honestly a joy to be here with you, and a joy to be with the coaching community. Thank you. I'm really excited about our time together today.
Great to have you. Let's spend a little bit of time getting to know you. I read a little bit of the bio, but I'd rather kind of hear it from you. So, give us a little bit of your background, just and maybe even how you got to coaching.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking. So I started life making Top Gear. So talk about a baptism of fire, blowing up sheds, caravans, testing cars to their absolute limits. You probably all know Jeremy Clarkson. Power is certainly his approach. And then I did a little bit with Coca-Cola on the Olympic Games, London 2012, looking after torchbearers. So anyone that was special and extraordinary enough to carry the Olympic flame around the UK and Ireland, ending up at the opening ceremony where the Olympic flame is lit. Absolutely incredible. And then worked at Rolls-Royce motor cars too, to name a few. So the picture I'm painting is high performance and high pressure have certainly been my background. Then I did some performance coaching in the automotive sector and set up on my own. And I absolutely love what I do. I discovered strengths on a leadership course, and out on top came developer. So it made sense that I was absolutely brought alive by working with torchbearers, extraordinary people on the Olympics, and coaching in the automotive sector. But equally, between my work, I'd done volunteer work out in India, so working with children that were either abandoned or abused, or children that are trafficked into the sex trade, helping teach them English or dance. Not that I'm a very good dancer, but just children's subjects. But it really did bring me alive and deep fulfillment to help celebrate the talents and gifts that these children had over in India. So all of this combined in the melting pot, I thought, do you know what? This is what I am born to do, is help celebrate and develop leaders and teams.
What do you think in your own coaching, as you look at your top 5? You mentioned developer already, but if you were to kind of put together that top 5 in a statement about yourself, how do you coach based on your top 5? Could you put that together for me, just in a little summary?
Oh, thanks, Jim. Nothing like a question off the hoof, is there? Thank you so much. Essentially, it comes down to deep and significant relationships. Certainly my top 5, connectedness, all about connecting with people, building bridges, finding common ground. Positivity, you can hear it. I can't get away from it. And empathy, certainly that non-judgment of those that I work with. And it's very common for me and probably many other coaches to hear, I've never told anyone this, or does this happen to you a lot, that people just offload? So empathy is really truly my secret secret weapon in my coaching style. And in fact, if I may say, it's just what I did my TED talk on, the subject of empathy, how we use it to build, grow, and create cultures, and perhaps a country like Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand.
That's great. And we're talking about confident and competent coaching. So that's going to be a kind of a theme throughout our time here. As we look back, we're 18 months into this COVID experience that we're in. Can you give me a little background for you? What has that done for you? Let's start historical here for a second. Think back to March of 2020. How have things changed for you in your coaching due to COVID?
Well, I mean, unquestionably, it's all gone online. So that connectedness that I mentioned, those deep, significant relationships, having to engineer those online with people and teams, and I know I echo the rest of the coaching community. That first and foremost has been a huge challenge in navigating how we operate. I mean, I don't know about you, but certainly a lot of people started COVID on Skype. It was just the platforms we started using, and then it was navigating which platform is the best for us. So that quite simplistically, and I think generally for all of us has been a challenge. But then the excitement of working from home, I really did feel that after March, after about 3 months, really did weigh heavy on everybody. Be you a coach, a financial leader, a lawyer, whoever you were, the impact of working online and remotely really did begin to weigh heavy for all of us. So that has what has really helped my business pick up is people in their productivity, confidence, and performance as we work from home.
There's been some, I think I've said this publicly a couple times. There's been some things that, because of COVID, like, that's a phrase we're going to say a lot of because of COVID, right? That I've actually liked. I mean, the results of things, I've had to change some behaviors. I've had to do some things differently. Even when we think about what I do at Gallup, are there any things that over the last 18 months, it forced you to do, especially from a coaching perspective, that you go, you know what? I'm going to keep it. I'm not, even if things change. I mean, even if tomorrow it went back to normal, we know that's not going to happen. But what good things, you have positivity high, what good things have come out of this experience for you, especially around your coaching?
Well, first things first, if I may say, it's an absolute joy to work in your slippers. I've gone through a couple of pairs of slippers. I'm not scared to admit it really is a comfort to work in your slippers. But quite honestly and earnestly, I think most people here will be tuned into their strengths and know and understand their strengths. And for me personally, the power of feeding our strengths on a daily basis has really, really shown its weight in terms of energy. So I think understanding what energizes each of your strengths is an absolute superpower to keep going as a coach through COVID. So understanding how you energize yourself through the lens of your strengths is absolutely magnificent in terms of energizing you as a coach to be able to deliver consistently through COVID and moving forward.
Couple, Kevin says in the chat room, he says he's kind of a sneaker guy himself. And that has, I think dress code is certainly, it is one of those things. From your coaching itself, so the way you are interacting with people, how has that changed? And has there been are there things, the way you coach or the way, I know we went virtual, but let's go a little deeper than just saying, well, it's just virtual. Anything that you would pull out of that you'd say, man, I learned this during it and I'm going to hold on to this for sure?
Oh, 100%, Jim. In COVID at the beginning, I developed a coaching framework for myself and for my clients. So how I develop people has really, really, really been strengthened in COVID. And the process that I've developed, it's based on 6 pillars. Am I allowed to say what they are, Jim?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, for sure.
So with teams that I work with, it's 6 pillars over 3 months. This is the process. And with individuals, it's 12 sessions. So 3 months and 2 sessions on each pillar. So those pillars are, if I just go through them with you, is number one is clarity. I get really clear on why we're here. What are we doing here? What brought us to where we are, needing coaching? What does this look like? What does success look like, crucially? So we spend a lot of time getting really clear about what we're doing. Number two is confidence, my absolute wheelhouse. I love this. And of course, strength is the perfect vehicle to develop people in their confidence. So that once I've got clear on everything, that is where I bring strengths in. So number two is confidence. Number three is a pillar that I call focus and discipline. Now, we all know that these are strengths, but as humans, some of us are acutely focused, some of us are really not focused, and some of us are disciplined about things that aren't necessarily good for us. So I look at where we dial up and dial down our focus and discipline. I love that one. Then the fourth pillar is routine. So what are our great habits? And let's face it, COVID and the pandemic has really taught us the importance of routine. Here in the UK, we were allowed out for one glorious walk, and if that wasn't part of your routine, you certainly knew about it. But it's not just that. It's morning routine, evening routine. What are we doing to get to our success as part of our routine? Aristotle, arguably the founder of Western philosophy, he said, I love this, we are what we repeatedly do. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is a habit. Excellence is a habit. So I like to get my clients to their excellence. So pillar 4 is routine. Sorry, Jim, I'm two more.
No, keep going. You're on a roll. Keep going. People are like, slow down. I'm trying to write this thing. Keep going.
And number 5 is fulfillment. And let's face it, the last 2 years for most people haven't brought much fulfillment because we haven't been connected with the people that we love. So I really deeply look at what people's fulfillment is, and again, those energizers through the lens of our strength is fantastic for helping people find fulfillment. I mean, we all know as coaches that when we use our strengths, we're 3 times more likely to report an excellent quality of life and 6 times more likely to be engaged at work. We all know that, but I really dig deep into how our strengths bring us greater fulfillment. I love that piece. It's absolutely pivotal for me. And then the final pillar, number 6, is one that I call success and sustainability. Success, are we where we said we wanted to be when we started? And sustainability, not in terms of electric vehicles, but sustainability and how do we keep momentum of what we've created moving forward? So those are the 6 pillars that I develop people within, and COVID gave me the opportunity to research and develop those and indeed execute those.
Where do you think today people struggle? Are those 6 pillars? What are people struggling with, or what are you seeing trend wise? Where are they really struggling the most in those 6 pillars?
I think it depends team to team and person to person, Jim. But I would identify that the most hunger I feel from my clients are in confidence, certainly at the moment. And I love this. When people come to me struggling with their confidence, I absolutely light up because I know that I can really help them. And then the 5th pillar, fulfillment. There's been a real examination of what brings us fulfillment, and this is affecting people at the lowest rung of the career ladder and equally super high net worth clients that I know. Where is their fulfillment? I've worked with people that are moving country as a result of their lack of fulfillment through COVID. So fulfillment and confidence, I would say, Jim, are the most hunger I feel.
Do you feel like that's different among your coaching peers? I mean, if we think about coaches that are out there today and their personal well-being, their personal, how they're feeling kind of in this moment, would you say if you used your pillar structure to where they're struggling, would that be different or the same?
For coaches, I'm really fortunate in that I'm very connected with some great coaches. So I do hear what Brené Brown will call the rumbles of what's happening. And yes, I do believe that there is a confidence deficit in some people's coaches, but some people's coaching, Jim. But equally, I feel some coaches have a real hunger to maximize and optimize this time. But I feel that the deficit amongst the coaching community at the moment is certainly in I don't want to say, yes, I would go as strong to say as imposter syndrome, which of course has confidence layered underneath it. And again, this is something that I absolutely come alive within. Can I just reflect something over to you?
Yeah.
So this is a really good book, really valuable book in developing people in their confidence. It's by a woman that was educated at Oxford University, Kathy Kay. You may know her. She's an American journalist. And she says that the three biggest killers of confidence are, number one, people pleasing, number two, overthinking, and number three, dwelling on defeats. And if we think about it as coaches, because, you know, I'll make no bones about it, you know, it's not been easy sitting right here either. So overthinking, people pleasing, and dwelling on defeats. As coaches, we do this a lot. Of course, inherently, we please people. That's our jobs, to empower, inspire, encourage, coach. People pleasing, overthinking. Well, sometimes, particularly those with Maximizer that I've worked with quite closely, can go into overdrive. And dwelling on defeats. There have been so many defeats for each of us in the last 2 years. So I just want to reflect those back, because those are the three biggest confidence killers. So amongst the coaching community, I am seeing a sense of imposter syndrome. And am I right for this person? Am I good enough for this person? Am I the right person? And, you know, I've experienced people that have had to go and find other jobs, you know, take themselves away from coaching. I know a couple of people that have actually had to go and find other work as a result, which is not what we want for the community, surely.
I was in the pre-show. I was talking to you a little bit about how I see the movement of coaches, you know, around the world, and I've seen, you know, the full third of our coaches database has changed their email address. That doesn't always mean that they've moved, but for a lot of folks, they have. Carolyn had asked this question about, she wants to hear a little bit more about this idea of boosting confidence. And I'm going to ask you this question, Dani. If you were to give coaches advice, you know, many of them were in an organization 18 months ago, and they're not in that organization today. Or like you said, they were coaching independently, and when COVID hit, that dried up and they had to take a job. They've changed. So what kind of advice would you give to coaches around what could they be doing to kind of rebuild that confidence, reboost that, you know, this idea of having confidence in what they're doing? What kind of advice would you give them?
Jim, thank you so much for asking me this question, and I don't feel we've got long enough. But the steps that I would begin to take in building your confidence is look at your top five. Look at your top five. Take out this fantastic resource, which I'm sure as coaches we've all got. I have little notes in it and keep it right next to me. But then look at your top five. So first things first, look at your top five, and then in your notepad, take your notepad. Don't write this on a computer. Don't write it. Don't just think it. Write this down. Write this down, because by writing things down, you open a neural pathway in your body and you set a groove deeper. But write this down. Through your strengths, what is the value you bring? The value you bring. So that could be 5 bullet points. It could be five pages. But through your strengths, what is the value that you bring? Because that will be the first stepping stone for you moving forward in building your confidence, knowing and harnessing the value that you bring.
Why do you think, why is that a struggle for people? Like it and not just coaches, but when the folks that you're working with, you see that idea of confidence. And, you mentioned in the, the word imposter syndrome has resonated well with the chat room at this point, as they're spending some time talking about it out there. Why do you think that's such a problem? What are the underlying, and if you were to say, even to individuals you're coaching, if you were to say things we could be doing to start rebuilding that confidence, what kind of advice would you give, or what would you have them do?
Well, first things first, if the chat is going alive about imposter syndrome, I want you all to know you're in great company, because 70% of people struggle with imposter syndrome. That's the International Journal for Organizational Behavior. 70% of people, so 7 in 10 of us, struggle with imposter syndrome. This fantastic woman, who you sure know, Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook or Meta, whatever it's being called at the moment, she even talks in her book about struggling with imposter syndrome. But Jim, was the question, why is this a challenge?
No, my question is more of, if it's out there and we're struggling with it, right? How do we, what kind of things, what would we do? What could we start doing to change that? If I'm having imposter syndrome, in other words, I don't belong here. By the way, I have imposter syndrome every day in this role that people are always like, "Oh, you're so confident." You're like, you just totally fake it. Right. And that's not totally true. But so if we're struggling with that a little bit, what kind of things can we do? What kind of exercises can we go through? How do you help people build that confidence in so they can begin to move on from that?
Well, Jim, and particularly with your high woo, that's going to come across as confidence, and yeah, often behind that high woo isn't that confidence that sometimes back that up. And I make no bones. I think it's fair to say we all struggle with our confidence at times. And steps that I would take me back to when I was training with Gallup to become a coach, and one of the quotes that truly resonated with me, and I don't know if it does with you, is Ralph Waldo Emerson, although the accreditation of that is somewhat disputed. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What lies behind us," as in what's gone, "and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." Tiny matters compared to what lies within us. And our strengths are within us. And perhaps it's that as coaches, we get so focused on people that we're coaching, the other, that I wouldn't say forget what's within us, but we lose sight of what's within us. I'll put my hand up and say, I know I don't do enough work personally on my strengths. Input's number 5. So I spend so much time researching for my clients, making sure I've got the right and accurate information and data. As you can see here, it's all highlighted. I love that. But actually, do we spend enough time pressing into what is within us? Because in these times of uncertainty, lacking confidence, the only place that confidence and certainty can come from is within.
I heard a coach, and I think this was on, I do so many of these, I kind of forget where the source is. So if I'm quoting you and you're listening, I'm sorry. But I was doing an interview, and someone had said, oftentimes when we're struggling with confidence, we can fall back on some smaller tasks that we know we can do and do well, and just do them to get them done, to rebuild that confidence. In other words, so if I have a task ahead of me, I'm thinking about, I've got to go get this thing done, but I'm just struggling in it. Go back and do some things that I know how to do, that I know I can do well, and get some small wins. Like, get those wins going, get that momentum going. So then as I come back to that task that I was struggling with, I've got some positive momentum going forward, right? It's just a little tip, little technique to kind of trick ourselves into thinking like, no, I've had 3 successes already. I know I can do this, instead of coming out of cold. Anything, as you think about that, those techniques, anything that you've seen that works really well like that for people to kind of help them rebuild that confidence or restore that confidence?
Well, you're speaking to someone with high positivity who is all about celebrating the small wins. So yes. And the other important thing in celebrating those small wins, Jim, especially in this time at home, is connect with someone who can celebrate them with you. Be that a colleague, be that a fellow employee, your best friend at work, and otherwise your best friend, your mum, your partner, who can celebrate those small wins with you. You know, connection is so important. I mean, the great Brené Brown said we're hardwired for connection. So I would encourage that we align with someone who can celebrate those with us.
As you're thinking about community, then how's the coaching community as you see it? You're connected to other coaches, and you're looking at how are we 18 months, 2 years into COVID? How do you think we're doing?
Honestly,
I wouldn't want it any other way.
It wouldn't be any other way. Honestly, I think a lot of the community is exhausted. I think there's, you know, we put on our page, didn't we, Jim, that, you know, 40% reduction in job quality. You know, the research that Gallup did with Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. That research is not for employees at Google or legal firms or financial institutes. That's us. That is us as coaches. And McKinsey research shows that 9 in 10 of employers know that COVID has had an impact on their employees. You know, there's a recognition that workers, and we as coaches are workers. Yes, this is our calling, but we're workers as well. It's had an impact on our mental and sometimes physical health. So I know that as a community, we are exhausted. We are some lacking in confidence, lacking in direction. What's the right way to go? You know, a very common phrase at the beginning of the pandemic was to get a response to an email. Well, we'll wait till this blows over. Well, it's not blowing over. So people are just trying so hard to maintain a rhythm, a momentum, power in their coaching, that I speak to people quite regularly, and there is a general sense of exhaustion.
What do you think we could do as a community? So as we think about, you're talking to, you know, a potentially thousands of coaches who listen to Called to Coach. And if you were to kind of think about some advice, okay, we're here and we get it. What can we do now? What kind of things? Give me some ideas of things of what you think we could be doing.
Well, so Gallup's, you know, we know that Gallup's done loads of research, but weekly feedback, people are 3.2 times more likely to agree that they're doing outstanding work. So my question is, as a coach, who can you go to for weekly feedback, recognition? Who can you say, hey, I think we need to check in with each other at least once a week? Maybe it's not even a Zoom call, maybe it's a WhatsApp, and just recognize what we're doing, celebrate those successes. What's gone well this week? Who have you connected with this week? So for me, it's about recognizing, connecting, and celebrating as a community together.
I wouldn't even discourage Zoom calls. I know everybody says Zoom fatigue, and listen, those things aren't real if you're getting fed in them, if you're getting encouragement through them. But, you know, early in the pandemic, I set up a couple calls, and I've mentioned this in the programs before. I set up a couple calls with a couple guys who I knew I could rely on every single week. And those became very important times for me. Those became very important feeding, and we did a lot of laughing during those, you know, guys that I just get along with really, really well. I think coaches need to kind of consider, you know, if we're struggling with confidence at this point, if we're struggling with encouragement, I think you can't do this alone, right? It's just kind of what I hear you saying. One, we can't do this alone. Two, we're going to need to be a little proactive about reaching out to others and having meaningful conversations. We know this from our research as well. We know that in this, you know, we have this boss to coach journey, right? Of turning managers into coaches as we're doing this. And we know from that research that individuals are really looking for one good coaching conversation a week. That's kind of what we're seeing as the standard, right? As far as them being engaged in what they're doing. Coaches, are you getting one good coaching conversation about yourself a week? Like, who have you set up? This is rhetorical, Dani, unless you want to share this. But Coaches, who have you set up to be your manager? Now, it doesn't have to be in the traditional sense of them managing you, but Dani, don't we need kind of a manager relationship, or at least another coach relationship for ourselves in this? What do you think?
But Jim, absolutely, undoubtedly, I myself have a coach, but I do regularly communicate with coaches in our community. And one thing that I think it's really important that we as coaches, and I love that you said about a coach being a manager. We have a manager, we have a leader that we reflect to. Let's go back to basics and look at the Q12 survey. Answer those questions yourself as a coach. Yeah. Go through those. Who's looking at your progress? Who is your best friend at work? Go through the Q12 for yourself. Let's go back to coaching basics. Answer those for yourself. But honestly, if people take nothing else from this podcast, it is find that best friend, that manager that you can connect with on a weekly basis. And to I hate that phrase, circle back, but to go back to what you just said, Jim, about laughing with these people that you connected with. Actually, as part of some of my confidence building programs, when I work with teams, I actually do a segment of the session saying, what has made you laugh lately? What has made you laugh lately? Because through COVID, there's been a distinct lack of joy, let's face it. And by people acknowledging what's made each other laugh, it could be my dogs playing together, it could be I watched this great comedian, everybody has a different response to what has made them laugh. But actually the science behind laughing, I've done two stand-up comedy courses because I think it's a great thing to promote joy. Is brilliant. It actually helps reduce our stress levels. It boosts our immunity. So let's press into what has made us laugh. I think it's really powerful. So thanks for bringing that up, Jim.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I don't think I realized the power of laughter in it. The key was for me in this was that I reached out to individuals who needed nothing from me, right? This wasn't they in either direction. I wasn't managing them, and I'm using air quotes as the term managing, right? From that side, I wasn't leading or directing. They didn't need and likewise, I didn't need anything from them. Those relationships that I built, and maybe I'm just discovering this right now as we're thinking about this together. Those relationships where we decided to connect because we needed each other. We needed that time. We enjoyed that time together instead of having either a top-down or a bottom-up relationship associated with it. That may have provided more value for me than I actually recognized. And I might be recognizing this in real time right now. And I think in our coaching community, we have this opportunity to connect with others where we don't need things from. Is that making sense? I don't need things from them. They don't need things from me, but we need each other. Does that make sense, Dani?
Jim, absolutely perfect sense. Thank you. And just to bring it in, there's someone that I know will be watching that I connect with regularly, and it's not a what can you do for me, where can you get me, what doors can you open up. It's become a really trusted relationship, and that's someone within our coaching community that I'm absolutely honored to have that kind of relationship with. And we've been able to do that online. It's only a relationship that's blossomed through COVID. But you're absolutely right. We've just really enjoyed celebrating one another, going through the very personal at times tragedies in COVID, because I think it's fair to say we've all had a few tragedies. Jim, and you and I spoke of one before, but everyone's had trauma, difficulty, personal, relationship, financial woes in COVID. And actually finding the people that genuinely care in those times, and that you can connect with no expectation other than they're there to support. I've really relish the richness of our Gallup coaching community in this time. So a big thank you for you, Jim, leading that.
Yeah, well, listen, there have been others I've leaned on in our community. Being in my role here is to kind of make sure everybody stays on the track, right? And if they get off track, put it back on. But there's been folks around me that I've leaned on, and it doesn't, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be one person either. I mean, it can be a group of people fulfilling different areas but I think the intentionality of it, of if we're struggling with confidence, and I think it's hard, Dani, when you're in this mode of you're struggling, right? It's hard sometimes to get yourself out of it alone, right? It's hard, I think, for some people to say, well, I'm just going to start doing things. There are some that struggle with that. And I think you've got to ask for help, right? In those cases. Don't you think there are at times when we're struggling with confidence, sometimes the hardest step is asking for help?
Oh, definitely, yeah, Jim. Undoubtedly, because you're not in, you're not in that mindset when you're in a deep dive of everything's wrong, essentially. That you can think pragmatically and logically. But for me, you're absolutely right. It is two things. It is asking for that help, that courage, that strength to recognize and realize and say, hey, I could do with some support, and that is a really brave and difficult thing to say. But the other thing that I want to say, that if people are in that mindset that they don't feel that they can reach out, feed yourself on what is good. Press into the people, as in, podcasts, books that do nourish. Because if we spend our time doing things that aren't good for our brain, putting rubbish in, we are ultimately going to get rubbish out. So if you are in that mindset where you feel I need some support right now is too much, nourish yourself on what is good.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think as you were talking, I was thinking about this spinning wheel that, there's folks who are stuck that they could go into, and it would fling them out, it would give them some momentum. They're stuck. And sometimes they just need to be in groups, and maybe those, maybe the folks that they reach out to for help aren't the ones that they develop long-lasting relationships with them, but that sometimes you just need a relationship to unstick you, right? You smiled and you're shaking your head like maybe you've had that experience before, maybe you recognize that. Anything else you would want to add as we think about, because sometimes just getting off center, right? Getting unstuck is a monumental experience all in itself. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, and Jim, there are people that are in our lives for a season. Of course, there are. There are people that come into our lives for a season, undoubtedly. But there are also some absolute rockets in our coaching community, and that you can just fling them a little message and say, "Have you got 20 minutes?" And sure enough, a couple of hours later, you're on a call, and they are setting you back on fire. And I've got to really raise up our coaching community, because there have been a few people that have certainly done that for yours truly, and I hope equally the same. And we've all heard of Maya Angelou. She's got some great quotes, and one that's really resonating for me, just to reflect to everybody, it is, nothing can dim the light that shines from within. Nothing can dim the light that shines from within. So find those people that make you spark from within and connect with them. That is so powerful in this time. That is so powerful.
Yeah. I think I would say, don't always assume it's going to hit you on the back of the head either. Sometimes these relationships that you need are subtle. And sometimes there are people reaching out to you. I've gotten notes, via Teams internally. I've said, "Hey, how's your day going?" And they go, "Terrible." And I'm like, "You got a minute?" And not necessarily to reach out to fix that, but to listen, to hear. And for me, sometimes those conversations that start that way are actually more encouraging for me than it was for the person who called. Like I almost needed I needed to spend time giving into someone else's life to get back something that I in some cases I didn't even know it, right? And so I would encourage coaches to listen carefully to the conversations that you're having with both your peers and those that you're coaching, because you may see moments that if you're not listening carefully, you'll miss when someone says my day is terrible or great. Yeah, okay, like let's dig in a little bit to that as well. Dani, any as we think about this time, if you think about the last 2 years on this, any stories or a story that would, for you, as we think about this topic today of building confidence, put a little, let's make this real. Can you bring an example of either someone you work with or even yourself where this played out, this idea of building confidence in coaching?
Yes, but before that, can I just say about that person that
Yeah.
has reached out to you saying I'm terrible, and then you're like, you get more out of it, because I'd love to tell you a
Yeah.
great story.
Yeah.
But you say you got more great out of it, because I just did my TED talk on empathy. I researched all sorts of things about, when we show empathy, what happens in the body, and the science is really interesting. The biochemistry actually adapts in the body when we change from a mindset of stress and selfishness to a mindset of care and empathy. So what happens, and you may have felt this, when we move to that mindset of care, so when that person has said I'm terrible and you go, I'm just here to listen, let me hear, let me help you. When you move to that mindset and place, your heart rate decreases, slows down, and your vagal tone, which is the ability to relax and return after stressful events, is strengthened. So you're scientifically better when you care and show empathy to people. But what I will say, having empathy really, really high, and also being a coach, and I know that we're speaking to a lot of coaches, is have boundaries around that. Have boundaries around your care and empathy, because we all know when you pour out way too much. I've got a GP, a doctor client with empathy number one. When you pour out too much, you exhaust yourself. So just be very, very careful around how you manage that.
Yeah. But I love the idea of when feeling down, reach out to help someone else. It's a really, you'd think that that's counterintuitive, like, but it's incredible how that, like you said, it changes the body chemistry. We begin to think beyond ourselves. When I'm stuck, I actually, it's almost a technique I've started using now, is I go unstick someone else. Like, okay, I'm stuck. So let me go use that energy to help someone else get something unstuck. And in the process of that, that often solves my own problem. Like, it's the weirdest thing. But now that I know through your TED talk, it's it's body chemistry, right? It's our chemistry actually changes. So that's I love that. I even get excited about thinking about today. I'm like, I wonder who I could help today. Now, I spend a ton of time. I mean, this is kind of the secret of my job, is I spend a ton of time helping people all the time, right? People with questions, people like, hey, where do I find this? Where do I get that? How do I get this done? How do I do that? That's actually me getting that giving, right? It's that giving a part of it that feels good. Like, I like doing that. So, hey, a couple questions from the chat room. Lisa had asked us earlier in the program, and she just wants to know, what strength do you use to get all this stuff done? Like, as you think about your top 5, what's your doing? What drives you as far as getting stuff done?
Honestly, my number one is developer. I am so hungry to develop people and their performance and their confidence. I absolutely love it so much. And honestly, serving people, helping people, delivering really, really powerful sessions for leaders and teams. I've got one. I've got to create one tomorrow, and I'm so excited about it for a team next week. I'm so looking forward to it.
Can you talk a little bit about using that book, The Confidence Code, with your clients? How are you doing that?
I simply use it. Thanks for asking. I simply use it as a reference, because a lot of clients ask me, how they can develop, or any resources I'd recommend. Another one that you may or may not know that is absolutely phenomenal is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And he was a psychiatrist that was in 3 concentration camps. And I just picked it up, Jim, because of the point that you were making about, this care. And he talks about his attitude in a given set of circumstances, how we have the power to choose that. But the point and part of that book, so Jenny, to answer your question, it's references and resources that I offer to my clients. He actually, as a psychiatrist, was dealing with a lot of people with depression. And he prescribed, this is back in the 50s, he prescribed that the people dealing with depression volunteer in libraries and with community groups, volunteer. So offer their time to help people. And he found that their depression alleviated as a result of volunteering their time for other people. So thanks for making that point. And that's another great resource as well.
Yeah, it's just an incredible technique to really get, if you're deep, if you're stuck, if you're diving, however it's spiraling, downward spiral of serving others or helping others or doing something different to help, where it changes things and pulls you up. I can't emphasize that enough. It gets, for me, I asked you a question early, what would you keep from COVID, our COVID time? What kind of things would you keep? And those immediate, for me, I'm going to ask you this one more time too. For me, one of the things I learned in the coaching community was when people had a question, answer it as quickly and then as personally as possible. And I'm a terrible typer. I'm not good at typing. Like, I hate it. I hate writing. That's why I'll never write a book. And everybody says, well, just, do that voice dictation stuff. I don't want to do that. But so my emails are terrible. Like, they're short. They're not very, there's no compassion in them. They're just all business. But when I can get somebody face to face, right? When I can get somebody on a Zoom call, when I can see their body language, like, this is what makes this so effective. This one-on-one, it's so much better for me. And I'm not going to go back to, and so I try to do less emails and more, hey, can we just connect on this thing, right? That's, again, something I'm taking away from that. In your coaching, any techniques that you've seen come up out of this time, that, and maybe an example where you're going to keep this thing moving forward, regardless of if we're be able to meet in person again or not. Any of those you want to share?
Yeah, certainly some of the relationships that I've developed in COVID, but also some of the tools that I use in my coaching. One that's been an absolute powerhouse in developing people is something on Cascade, which is the bring and need. What do my strengths bring and what do my strengths need? And that I have found an absolute magnificent tool for developing people, certainly in their confidence. And for us as coaches, it's something really, really good to go through. What energizes us through the lens of our strengths. So I'm certainly keeping that, and certainly keeping some of the incredible rhythms and relationships that I've developed with the coaching community.
Yeah. Dani, any additional, as we think of additional advice? Again, you've got coaches. As we spend this time together, any question or anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with the community before we kind of answer a few more questions from the chat room and then maybe wrap this up?
I think, yes, a couple of things. One is self-care. A client of mine actually said this, and I love this, and so I've stolen it. It hasn't been a time for self-care at all. It's been a time for super self-care. And I think that's brilliant. Super self-care. So as coaches, I think the power of this in developing our confidence, our style as a coach, because as we spoke about before, it's something that we can often forget what's within us. Who am I? Because we get so other centered. So looking at what supports our well-being, because we know that people that feel burnt out are 63% more likely to take a sick day at work, and as coaches we don't want that. So look after yourself. So self-care. And secondly, really simply, just write this word down. Just write this one word down. Believe. Believe. That's it.
Have you been watching Ted Lasso?
No.
You haven't seen it? That's a phrase they use. By the way, I wouldn't recommend everybody watch that, but that is a phrase they use. He also uses a phrase through that series, or an idea of being curious about people. Be curious. Like, I think this is a time, especially as we're emerging or as we're changing out of this, is for us all to be curious about each other. Dani, you said a lot of things today in this, right? and it's piqued my curiosity in some ways. I kind of want to spend some more time kind of think like, okay, tell me a little bit, tell me a little bit more about, you mentioned this TED Talk on empathy, and you mentioned this, how the outputs in our own body. Tell me some more about that. I think this is a time as coaches, and I think maybe just as humans, for us to be a little more curious about people, right? What's going on there? How are you really feeling? What's going on? We'll do a little bit of practice. Dani, you've been spending 45 minutes, 50, we'll say 50 minutes with us talking to the coaching community. How do you feel right now? I mean, what's genuinely, don't give me the pat answer. How do you genuinely feel right now about your time speaking with me and speaking to the coaches around the world?
Well, I think I feel real is the honest, I feel authentic. I have exposed some of what I do. Some of it you may feel is great. Some of it you may not feel is great, but I genuinely feel authentic. And that's, like you said about the honest, that's the only place that I can work from with the people that I love to work with. And actually, Jim, you saying about some things in your head, I've got one client in particular who came on board, thought what I did was absolute fluffy, a real man of a man's industry, proper blokes, very earthy. And he just said, you really sparked some things in my head. And actually next year I'm designing a program to work with his whole team for the next year because of the sparks he's had in his head and how it's lit things up for him. So it's truly a privilege and a pleasure to do what I do. But I feel, yeah, to come back to your question, I feel authentic, and I feel so warmed inside to be part of the connections in the coaching community that I'm truly privileged to be part of. Truly, that's not any corporate answer or anything. That is truly how I feel.
Yeah, I think for the folks joining us live, if you're listening to the recording, and many of you will, a lot of those same comments from the chat room today, just an authentic, encouraging. Lisa had said she was glad she woke up at 6 a.m. to spend, for a 7 a.m. start to get some energy going here. And of course, we appreciate those that are out there listening today. Dani, it's always great. I enjoyed spending some time with you. Last time I saw you, we were in London. We were together. It was pre-pandemic, and it was such a great time. By the way, that was a fabulous time for me. One of my career highlights was to spend, because I got to see, we did all these recordings and I got to see all these coaches. The recordings were okay. The best part was just the conversations that we got to have. Yeah. Kind of together. I guess I want to encourage people, if you're struggling in this as a coach, if you're struggling, if you're feeling alone, or your confidence is down, or you have imposter syndrome, or you're feeling like, I'm never gonna get this thing going. I think the message is reach out, right? Maybe go help someone, maybe just go help somebody, go help somebody else get off center. And I think sometimes there's some possibilities. Dani, last call. Anything else that you want to say to this community? You got the opportunity to do it. How do you want to wrap this time that we've had together?
Yeah, I think just to illuminate what you've just said, Jim, it's so important to reach out and connect, because we don't know that you're struggling, suffering, or feeling despondent if you don't let us know. So do reach out. That's really, really powerful. And the other thing is to say, Jim, thank you for leading this so well. I feel really energized as a result of going through all of these highs and lows of what the pandemic has meant and what we've learned for moving forward together as a coaching community.
One quick question before we go. I'll sneak one in from the chat room. What are you excited about coming up? What's on the horizon for you that gets you kind of excited around coaching? Anything ahead that you're particularly excited about?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. Raising my impact, developing people. That is what I'm really excited about.
That seems too easy. You have that done in a day.
No, not the way I want to. Like meaningful, significant impact for people to feel raised up to perform in their work and daily life. That's what I want.
I think there's never, everybody needs a coach. We've been saying that for a long time. I think there's never been a more critical time than that. But I think maybe not a coach to tell people what to do, but to experience life with them, to go through it with them and build that into them, build this confidence back into them. We know in those 4 needs of followers that stability has never been from a leadership standpoint. And as a coach, I think you're a leader, from a leadership standpoint, there's never been a more critical time to build stability into people's lives. We're just going to need it going forward. It's just a crazy time. Dani, thanks for spending the hour with me. I think I'm super encouraged. The only problem for me about getting these done early in the morning, it's afternoon for you, but early in the morning is now this is the peak of the day. What else could be better? So Dani, thanks for coming out and being a part of it. I appreciate it. Couple reminders for folks going forward. One, take advantage of all the resources we have available. Dani mentioned a bunch of them, and so they're not available on Gallup Access, but we have a lot of things that are. So if you head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths, you can sign in there. Of course, your strengths report, I mentioned as coaches or leaders, and if you haven't gotten access to your Clifton Strengths for Manager report, I think that might be the best report for coaches we've ever done. So head out there. It's available for you if you want to purchase that or unlock it, make it available for you. If you have any questions, you can always send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Dani, if folks wanted to connect with you, what's the best and easiest way for folks to connect with you?
Well, first things first, thank you so much, Jim, for including me. And my company is Lift This Life. Lift This Life. I'm all about raising people up. So lift as in elevate, lift this life. People can get in touch with you there. Thank you for asking that, Jim. And thanks so much for including me today.
Yeah, no, great to have you as well. You can, of course, find us on any social platform. Just search Clifton Strengths. And we want to thank you for joining us today, especially the chat room. They're all fired up. So I appreciate they're going to go out and serve people today, which is super great. And chat room, thanks for coming out. We want to thank everyone who came out live. And I'll say this, if you found this helpful, and listen, many of you did, share it. Would you take the link, take the YouTube link, go post it to folks who maybe need a word of encouragement today. So we want to thank you for coming out, and maybe some coaches in your community that didn't get a chance to listen to it, share it with them, encourage them as well. Thanks for coming out. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.